When I say that women chase the man who has the courage to be unshakably himself, I'm not talking about arrogance. I'm not talking about chest-thumping confidence that's just a mask for insecurity. I'm talking about something deeper, something rooted in authenticity and a refusal to compromise your identity in exchange for someone else's approval. Most people, whether they admit it or not, spend their lives subtly bending themselves to fit into the expectations of others. They adjust their opinions to avoid disagreement. They hide their flaws to avoid rejection, present a carefully crafted image thinking that this will make them more likable, more desirable, more accepted, and in doing so, they lose the very thing that makes them unique, the thing that could have made them magnetic. A man who is unshakably himself doesn't operate like that. He's grounded in his own values, his own vision, his own standards for life. He doesn't just know what he wants, he knows who he is. And that's rare because it requires something most people avoid: the willingness to be disliked. You see, being authentic is easy when you know people will approve. The real test comes when you hold your ground knowing some will walk away. That's where most men fail. They fold. They become agreeable to keep the peace, or worse, to keep someone interested. But the moment you do that, you teach the world, and her, that you are willing to trade your truth for attention. And nothing kills attraction faster than the scent of desperation. This is why courage is the key word here. Because in relationships, in dating, in life itself, it takes courage to reveal your true self without apology. It's not passive. It's not about just being yourself in some casual way. It's about standing firmly in your convictions even when it costs you short-term comfort. And there's another layer most people miss when you are unshakably yourself. Communicate, without even trying, that your sense of worth doesn't come from her reaction, it comes from within. And that's what creates the gravitational pull. Because now, you are not seeking her as a source of validation, you are inviting her into a life that is already full, already meaningful, already driven by something larger than both of you. Women respond to that instinctively. It's biological. From an evolutionary standpoint, the man who is centered, who is not easily swayed, can hold his own in the face of uncertainty. That's the man who signals stability and leadership, not because he tries to, but because it's who he is. Now, here's the paradox that turns the whole dynamic upside down. The less you need someone to validate your identity, the more they're drawn to you. This isn't a trick. It's not about playing hard to get. It's about genuinely building a life that does not crumble without their attention. Most men have it backwards. They think if they prove themselves enough, show enough interest, or give enough attention, that will make her stay. But overinvestment too soon sends a very different message, that you don't believe you are enough without her approval. And when that happens, the polarity disappears. She stops leaning in. She stops chasing. A man who is unshakably himself doesn't just hold his ground, he sets the ground. He defines the terms of his life, and others adapt to it. That doesn't mean he's rigid or closed off. It means he's selective about what and who he allows to shape his reality. He doesn't say yes to everything just to avoid a no. He's not afraid of silence. He's not afraid of space. And that space is exactly what allows attraction to breathe. You have to understand, history isn't about withholding information for the sake of it. It's about being so fully engaged with your own life that no one person can consume all of you. You have layers, depth, a direction that doesn't pause when someone enters your orbit. That's what keeps people leaning forward, wanting more. And here's the uncomfortable truth: if you are not unshakably yourself, you will end up chasing, because you'll be constantly looking to others to reflect your worth back to you. You'll adapt, perform, and shift just to keep their attention. But the moment you do that, you lose the very quality that could have made them chase you. So this is the challenge: to be so solid in who you are, so clear on your values, so committed to your path, that whether she stays or leaves, your identity remains intact. That's not just attractive, that's powerful, that's rare. And that rarity is exactly why 99% of women will chase when they find it. You don't have to play games. You don't have to pretend to be someone you're not. You have to become someone whose life is so authentic, so unapologetic, and so anchored in purpose that the chase becomes inevitable. When you reach that point, you'll realize something profound. The goal was never to get someone to chase you. The goal was to become the kind of man worth chasing. If you want, I can now expand key point 2 in the same style so your whole speech flows like one unbroken high-retention monologue. Do you want me to continue with that? When I say desire isn't born in comfort, I mean that predictability is the death of attraction. Comfort may be essential for stability, for trust, for long-term connection, but desire lives in a different neighborhood altogether. Desire lives in the place where there is just enough uncertainty to keep curiosity alive. Someone can predict exactly what you'll say, exactly how you'll react, exactly where you'll be. They may feel safer, but they won't feel that magnetic pull that keeps them leaning forward. It's the unknown that stirs the imagination. It's the gaps between what they know and what they don't know that create that subtle ache of wanting to get closer. This is why so many relationships start with intensity and fade into routine. In the beginning, there's mystery, there's space, there's novelty. But over time, often trade that tension for convenience. They exchange curiosity for predictability. And while that can create comfort, it can also extinguish desire. In the realm of attraction, mystery is not about being evasive or manipulative. It's about maintaining an independent center of gravity, a life, a set of goals, a source of fulfillment that doesn't shrink down to fit into someone else's world. When you have that, you automatically preserve a sense of unpredictability. People can't fully you, and that's what keeps them chasing. This is where so many get it wrong. They think closeness means constant availability, constant communication, constant proof of interest. But when everything is available on demand, its value drops. When you can have something anytime, you stop working for it. And human psychology tells us this clearly. We value what we must earn, what we must reach for. If you always respond instantly, if you always cancel your plans for someone, if you always rearrange your life to accommodate them, or removing the very conditions that keep desire alive, you are removing the pursuit. And pursuit is where desire thrives. Now, here's where it gets a little more philosophical. Mystery isn't about creating distance for the sake of it. It's about respecting the fact that two people should never completely collapse into one identity. When you lose all separation, you also lose the tension that makes attraction possible. In psychology, this is called differentiation, the ability to remain connected to someone while still maintaining your individuality. Think about it. If you want to keep someone intrigued, there has to be something about you they haven't fully explored. Not because you're hiding it, but because your life is expansive. Your world doesn't stop moving when they're not around. That kind of self-sufficiency forces them to recognize that your attention is valuable, not because you withhold it, because you have other priorities that are equally important. This is exactly why people are drawn to those who have passion, ambition, and purpose. It's not just that ambition is attractive, it's that purpose creates mystery. It tells the other person, there's a part of my life you don't control. There's a mission I'm on that you can't derail. And that's intoxicating, because it means they can't take you for granted. Comfort has its place, but comfort without mystery turns into complacency. And once complacency sets in, the spark dies. It's like a fire with no oxygen. Without space for the flames to move, they suffocate. Mystery is that oxygen. It's the space you leave for the other person to wonder, to imagine, to desire. Irony is that most people think creating mystery means playing games. It doesn't. Games are shallow. They may work for a week, but they collapse quickly. Real mystery is sustained by depth, by the fact that you are continually evolving, continually pursuing something that even they can't fully map out. If you want desire to live, you have to stop being entirely predictable, not by forcing unpredictability, but by living a life that is rich enough, layered enough, and purposeful enough that no one ever feels they've completely figured you out. When there's nothing left to discover, there's nothing left to chase. And that's the great paradox of attraction. It thrives in the tension between closeness and space, between the known and the unknown. If you remove all uncertainty, you remove the chase. And once the chase is gone, so is the energy that fuels desire. So here's what you need to understand. It's not about withholding yourself. It's about being so engaged with your own journey, so committed to your own path that no one ever feels they own all of you. That is what keeps them coming back. That is what keeps them leaning forward. That is what keeps them chasing. Comfort they feel in your presence should be balanced by the mystery they feel when you're not around. Because when there's always more to learn about you, always more to explore, stop being just a person they know, you become an experience they can't get enough of. And in that space between knowing and not knowing, between comfort and mystery, desire is born and it stays alive. If you want, I can now expand key point 3 so we keep building this in one smooth, high retention flow until the full speech is done. Do you want me to move to key point 3 next? Most men don't realize how quickly they surrender their leverage the moment they feel attraction. It's almost automatic, like a switch flips in their mind. Suddenly the calm, grounded version of themselves disappears. They start operating from a place of need instead of choice. They start seeking approval instead of simply existing in their own value. Begins subtly. Maybe they check their phone more often. Maybe they start rearranging their schedule, making themselves available at the slightest hint of interest. They start doing things not because they genuinely want to, but because they think it will earn them points. They stop acting like themselves and start acting like the version they believe will be liked the most. And here's the problem: the moment you shift into that mindset, no longer living from your center, you're no longer leading your own life, you're reacting to hers. Gone from being an independent man with his own mission to being a satellite orbiting around her attention. From a psychological perspective, this is deeply unattractive because it signals dependency, and dependency changes the dynamic entirely. It's one thing to show genuine interest, that's healthy, but when interest turns into overinvestment, it sends the message that you've already placed her above yourself before she's earned that position in your life. Think about what that communicates on a deeper level. It says, I'm so eager for your approval that I'll reshape my identity to fit what I think you want. That's not strength, that's not leadership, that's submission in the wrong sense. Not the kind that comes from mutual respect, but the kind that comes from fear of loss. And fear of loss is the fastest way to lose. In the early stages of attraction, what creates pull is the unknown. But the moment you start overcompensating, the unknown disappears. She can see exactly what's going on, that you're trying to secure her by giving more of yourself than is natural at this stage. Instead of feeling curiosity, she feels certainty. And certainty early kills the chase. From a philosophical standpoint, this is also about self-respect. If you truly respect yourself, you won't rush to prove your worth to someone who hasn't proven theirs to you yet. You won't throw your time, energy, and attention at someone just because you feel a spark. That spark should be the beginning of a mutual process, not the signal to hand over all your cards. There's a discipline required here, the discipline to hold your ground when emotions start pulling you forward. Emotions can cloud judgment, they make you forget your priorities, your boundaries, long-term goals. If you're not careful, you'll start making decisions based on short-term excitement rather than long-term alignment. And the truth is, many men don't even notice they're doing it until it's too late. One of the most powerful things you can do is resist the urge to over-invest early, not by playing cold or pretending not to care, but by simply continuing to live your life exactly as you did before she showed up. Keep your routines, keep your commitments, keep your mission front and center, because that communicates something far more attractive than any gift, compliment, or constant availability ever could. It communicates that you have a life worth joining, not abandoning. When you maintain that frame, something interesting happens. She has to meet you there. Instead of you constantly moving toward her, she begins to move toward you. Instead of you seeking her validation, she starts seeking yours. Not because you're withholding, but because you haven't lost yourself in the process. Men who give away their power too soon create an imbalance. They end up doing all the pursuing, all the giving, all the proving, while she sits back and evaluates. That's not a chase, that's an audition. And the tragedy is, they don't realize they're auditioning for a role. They should already own the role of a man who knows his worth. The moment you start operating from the mindset of, I hope she picks me, you've already lost the dynamic that would have made her want to. The key is to remain in the mindset of, I am choosing too. I am evaluating too. My time is just as valuable as hers. That's the subtle but profound shift that changes everything. It's not about arrogance. It's not about thinking you're better. It's about recognizing that your power lies in your ability to walk away if something doesn't align with your values. And you can't walk away if you've already given everything before you've received anything. So here's what you have to remember: attraction is not about over-proving. It's about maintaining your center. It's about showing interest without abandoning yourself. It's about letting things unfold without forcing them. Because when you hold on to your power, don't have to chase, the dynamic naturally flips and the chase comes to you.